All right, folks, let's get into some entertainment. Favorite, no, this is going to be wrestling. Favorite Mick Foley moment. BRF, the floor is yours.
Ooh, favorite Mick Foley moment. Well, for starters, I will say he is on my Rushmore of the Attitude Era. But yeah, my Attitude Era Mount Rushmore is Austin, Rock, Mick Foley, and Triple H. But that's neither here nor there. Um, I if I had to, gosh, he had a lot of really good moments though, because he is so underrated as a performer in the ring. His mic skills, I think he's one of the top 10 mic workers in the history of professional wrestling. Um, like if I had to pick one, it's not my favorite Hell in a Cell match of all time, but Hell in a Cell '98 in Pittsburgh.
King of the
Like,
Ring
yes,
with
King of the
Undertaker.
Ring. Yes, like I mean, just it, at this point, you don't even care that it wasn't the greatest wrestling match. It was the spectacle of it, just being thrown off the top of that cell through that table, and then being thrown through the cell to the ring, and still being able to finish the match. I mean, the internal injuries, he had to had suffered, and
Not to
then
mention those thumbtacks.
oh my god, and the injury with his mouth, where on the choke slam, he was choked, like he hit the chair, he hits the ring, the chair follows him, hits him in the face, knocks a tooth out his mouth through his nose. When you see that,
Mm.
when you see that clip of him where he's going to put his tongue, like he said, they were saying like he was smiling. He's like he wasn't smiling. There was a hole in his. There was a hole there, and he was trying to put his tongue like through that hole. Like the dude literally was wrestling with a tooth in his nose, and just he was like he just became such a made man after that match. I mean, just I mean, it's the spectacle. It was the spectacle of it, and just to be able to just the punishment he took to still be able to hurt the Undertaker the way he did in that match was just there's legendary performances and then there's legendary performances. That's one of the most legendary performances I've ever seen in any wrestling match in my life. So I will say this though, a close second is the This Is Your Life segment with The Rock. Very close second. But if I'm gonna pick one as my favorite all-time Mick Foley moment, it's Hell in a Cell, King of the Ring, 1998. It's my favorite Mick. It's my favorite Mick Foley. I'll say it's top three Mick Foley matches for me of all time. But it's definitely my favorite moment when you think about how it even the it's like the Attitude Era was getting ready to hit the true boom period of the Attitude Era. That match just like sent it into into another stratosphere. Like it defined what the Attitude Era was going to be at that time. That match defined it, and just whew, I could still and honestly I could still sit and watch that match like to this day every day. I could if I really wanted to because I mean it was just I'm a fan of these street fights, those type of matches anyway. That's up my alley when it comes to wrestling matches anyway. So I can that was just whew, I can sit and talk about that match a lot. That is my favorite Mick Foley moment. That match as a whole.
Big champ.
Hey, you can't talk about the Attitude Era or ECW or hardcore wrestling for that matter without Mick Foley. That's number one. Big shout out because, you know, I'm not gonna lie, Slick wanted to be Mick Foley at a certain point. But, you know, the way he was, he wasn't necessarily the glamour guy, I will say, but he was one hell of a wrestler. And he had personality. Man, I will say this. I think 2000 was a pivotal, although it did not last long, although it was just with him and Triple H. I think that rivalry kind of defined his career. Because the thing is, you have to think about where the WWE was at 2000. They were ahead by a mile in the Monday Night Wars. Let's just go ahead and get that out of the way. They were ahead by a mile in the Monday Night Wars. And not only that, you have to think about this. They were in transition without Stone Cold Steve Austin. They didn't have Stone Cold at the beginning of 2000. So they had to have another babyface, another opponent for Triple H to work with at a certain point because they just couldn't keep selling Triple H versus The Rock all year long. So that transition period really was arguably Mick Foley's greatest time because one of his greatest matches, I would say, was the street fight in Madison Square Garden, the Royal Rumble 2000. I mean, it was a lot of great wrestling in there. I mean, him wrestling as Cactus Jack, facing off against Triple H, I will say to this day, that is when truly Triple H became what Jim Ross calls him, the cerebral assassin. Because he had to match violence and wits with a guy who literally won the Texas Death Match in New Japan. So the thing was, he had to go blow for blow because, as we know, Mick Foley, he can get very, very violent. I mean, the barbed wire, the 2x4s, the bats, the thumbtacks, and
Remember when he got his ear ripped off?
Yeah, got his ear ripped off. I mean, getting thrown off of Hell in the Cell, not to mention getting thrown through Hell in the Cell. But hey, I think 2000 was the greatest year Mick Foley arguably ever had because that was when no Austin. Let's see what you could do, Triple H. We're going to put you with Mick Foley. Okay? You're going to go back to being Cactus Jack. Not Mankind, but Cactus Jack. So Royal Rumble 2000 and a close second, I will say, a very, very close second. His first WWE title reign. Which
99.
Was the pivotal point, the turning point of the Monday Night Wars. Because he not only won the title, he changed the tide for the WWE at that time. Because remember what happened? That was the same night of the infamous finger poke of doom. We thought we was about to see Hogan and Nash for the first time. And the first thing Tony Schiavone said was, hey, if you're thinking about turning to the competition, don't bother. Mick Foley, who used to wrestle here as Cactus Jack, is going to beat The Rock for their world title. That's going to put a lot of butts in seats. And just as he said that, they turned right over to see Monday Night Raw and watch Mick Foley win that match. And for the great Stone Cold Steve Austin to be involved in putting him over, who was the GOAT of the Attitude Era, that was nothing short of spectacular. But top two moments for Mick Foley, the Royal Rumble match in 2000, which really, really helped submit Triple H as the cerebral assassin, and the 99 butts and seats match, I will say, because that was the turning point of the Monday Night War. And I hate to say this, man, Mick Foley lost more than he won. That's what was so special about it. If you really think about a lot of the Mick Foley moments that we're going to say, even during this segment, a lot of them involve him losing. A lot of them involve him being beaten to a pulp.
True.
But that just goes to show you how great he was. He could lose and still get you to rally behind him.
You know, champ, I don't think he's ever won a WrestleMania match.
I don't think he has either.
He hasn't. I don't believe.
Yeah, I don't think he. Well, he won that one with Big Show by disqualification. That
Yeah,
was
yeah, the DQ. Yeah,
DQ, but that was an ugly win. But yeah, I mean, if you really think about it, Mick Foley was really on the butt end of putting someone over. When you think about Randy Orton, put him over. When you think about Triple H, put him over.
Edge.
You think, go ahead, my bad.
Edge.
Edge, he put him over. When you think about The Rock, Survivor Series 1998, the remake of the Montreal Screwdriver. The remake, I will say, because remember they finished him with the sharpshooter. So if you really think about a lot of the moments that we're going to say, it doesn't involve Mick Foley necessarily winning the match. It involves him losing. But he's so great, he could be the lovable loser and you still love it. But not a lot of credit is given because he helped turn the tide of the Monday Night Wars with that one night.
Definitely make a great point. Trey brought up an interesting, great WrestleMania 22 with Edge, especially the one in which Edge speared him through a flaming table. That was that was painful. But
yeah,
my favorite Mick Foley moments. You know, everyone keeps talking about the hospital incident with Stone Cold and Vince McMahon. Who can ignore Mr. Sacco? Who
that's where it was
can ignore
introduced.
Mr. Sacco, man? And Mick, that's the great thing about him. He can play different characters. Like I said, BRF, I did remember when we did most underrated, I said Mick Foley. You know why? Because physically, from the standpoint, he doesn't look like the most conditioned athlete in the world. But boy, does he take a beating. He takes a beating like no one else. And he also is charming. I have not, still to this day, have not heard a negative word about Mick Foley. Jim Cornette, colorful, has often said Mick Foley's like the nicest person in the wrestling business. And I do agree with Jim Cornette from that standpoint because it's hard to say no, it's hard to say anything negative like a guy like Mick Foley. He's fun, he's charismatic, also very articulate. He's also an author. And he also, the narration, remember Dark Side of the Ring? Chris Jericho, they do a good job as far as narrating Dark Side of the Ring, folks. Go watch it on Vice. Go check it out on any other platform, whether Hulu or whatever. Go check out Dark Side of the Ring. My favorite Mick Foley moment, other than Mr. Sacco, Backlash 2004 against Randy Orton. That was a hell of a hardcore match, especially with the barbed wire. And then when Randy Orton is about to hit an RKO on Mick Foley, that backfired. And then Randy Orton got hit with those thumbtacks. I mean, that was painful. But yeah, champ, when Mick Foley, when he won the championship, when Steve Austin, and it was great because that pop. I mean, Steve was the GOAT in the Attitude Era, and you can make an argument as far as wrestlers. He could make an argument for the GOAT. But Mick Foley, when he won that match, it was great. And Michael Cole with his commentating during that match, that was also great as well. I don't think Mick Foley gets enough credit. And I think he's very underrated. I mean, he's definitely the mic skills. You got to be a unique person in order to do three characters, from Cactus Jack to Mankind and Dude Love. Like, do you remember like with Dude Love? That's the type of character that he always wanted to be. And another underrated match for Mick Foley. Go back to In Your House 1996 when he faced the Heartbreak Kid Shawn Michaels. That was a really good match because how would a guy like Mick Foley go up against a guy like Shawn Michaels, who's arguably considered the greatest in-ring performer. And Shawn is a hell of a technician. But if you watch that match with Mick and Shawn, that was something unique. Because how would a guy like Mick Foley keep up with a guy of Shawn Michaels' in-ring technique and as far as condition? So go check out that match and also other Mick Foley great moment. Remember the trial of Eric Bischoff? Y'all remember that? When Mick
Only,
Yes.
Foley being the prosecutor?
only thing I remember about this segment, he was when they went on break. Oh man, moon
Moon
pie.
pie. Then
Then Wicked Man came out and he focused the camera on everybody. Mick Foley kept eating his moon pie like this ain't my first rodeo. That was cool, man. Don't
I got,
forget.
I got, I got one. I got one real quick. I feel
go ahead.
like, man, I am shocked. How do you not? How do you not gonna talk about greatest Mick Foley moments and not talk about Royal Rumble 1999?
Who?
I quit. I quit with The Rock. Like how? Like that those last 5 6 minutes of that match when he's just taking chair shot after chair shot after chair shot after chair shot to his head. I'm like looking at the match and I'm like, Rock, please, God, don't kill him. Don't kill him. Please don't kill him. Because you know, Mankind's telling him, you know, Mick's telling him, just keep swinging. Just keep swinging. And I bet you Rock was like, I don't want to swing no more. I don't want to swing no more. And Mick's like, just keep swinging. And I'm just like, oh my God, please do not die on my television screen. Please, God, no. But but just like, oh, that I that
Yeah.
that I quit match. I mean, and the thing is, that was a really really good match too. But I think it's just that that spot of him taking all the chair shots was oh, it just lives in my brain. Just I've never seen a man take that many chair shots to the head in my life. But to be able to tell a story, you know, to be able to tell the story of The Rock just being this ruthless, conniving heel that will stop at nothing to be WWF champion. Like he need like he The Rock needed that for that character at the time too, because people really didn't believe he could get down and dirty like that. So the fact that
Mhm.
he could get down, so the fact that he could get down and dirty like that, it added a layer to his heel character and really put him in another stratosphere, knowing where it was ultimately going, which was another WrestleMania angle with Austin. But yeah, Mick Foley just understood the business as far as what he needed to do to make himself still look like a viable competitor and contender for championships, but yet make his opponent, even though he knows he's going to lose, knowing how to make him look like $1 million. So that I Quit match really stands out for me too.
And also, Trey mentioned who remembers ECW One Night Stand with him and Edge. That was a good one too.
That was
That
great.
was a really good one.
Oh yeah,
And
that was him and Edge against Tommy Dreamer and Terry Funk. Ooh, that
hmm
was nasty. That was nasty.
I think with Mick Foley, and even I'm glad that you mentioned about that match, BRF, because even Undertaker, he talked about it on WWE Legends, the episode on Mick Foley. He even said, "I'm old school. Even I thought some of those chair shots that Mick took that night were too much." And unfortunately, I think his family, they had to see the whole thing, and that
Yeah,
was
they were
just
in the
like,
front row.
yeah, that was just painful for them to watch. I mean, to see him take numerous chair shot after chair shot, and ugh, it's terrible.
Yeah, I actually turned it off. I ordered it on pay per view, and if you know anything about pay per view back then, that's cost you $43, a
Yeah,
good $43. But yeah, during that segment, he kept hitting him. I couldn't watch it too much longer. I was like, stop the match, stop. And eventually they didn't stop it. So I cut it off for about a second too. You know, it was. And don't forget the empty arena match where he finally beat The Rock and pinned him with a forklift. That was funny.